General Kurilla, how long would it take ISIS-K to generate the capability to conduct external operations?
Specifically ISIS Khorasan, Senator, it is my commander's estimate that they can do an external operation against U.S. or Western interests abroad in under 6 months with little to no warning. In a classified session, I will talk about why I make that assessment. It is much harder for them to be able to do that against the homeland.
Senator Wicker talked to you quite a bit about Over the Horizon and our capabilities that we have there or don't have there in Afghanistan. Do you think that you need any additional resources in our upcoming budget to increase or improve those capabilities?
So we have been funded, like I said, for some alternative airborne ISR that will help us get longer duration. But it's not just about ISR. We're also increasing our other intelligence efforts to get penetration into the networks that we want. A part that goes unseen a lot of times is the analytical backside. These are the analysts, the linguists, and the production capability that help us make the decisions. And there has been a significant decrease shifted from the NDS to go against higher priority targets, but I would like to see to make sure that we don't lose so much of that capability that we cannot see the threat.
Because knowing that threat is obviously very important, as you stated, for the existence that we still see in Afghanistan of the terrorist groups that are there.
Correct, ma'am.
Thank you. Have you requested authority to conduct any strikes in Afghanistan against the ISIS-K targets that have been identified?
So in a classified setting, ma'am, I can talk about where we are in terms of the find, fix, and finish on them.
Okay. Do you still have a need for munitions that can hit hard and deeply buried targets?
I do, ma'am.
Do you have specific requests in that area?
That was in my unfunded priority list last year.
Do you plan to include it this year?
It depends on the full funding, ma'am.
Would it be your recommendation and your best military advice to this committee that it should be included?
So we did receive funding in my FY23 to include the additional procurement of it's the massive ordnance penetrator, which goes against hard and deeply buried targets.
Which are growing in number with our adversaries. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
What's your assessment of Iran and Saudi Arabia reestablishing diplomatic ties? You talked about that a little bit, but how does that affect our mill-to-mill relationships that we have with Saudi Arabia?
We have very strong mill-to-mill relationship with Saudi Arabia. I think this agreement is, again, is the culmination of 3 years of talks between them. The more concerning part is that China is the one that was mediating this.
As we look at Iran and their proxies throughout CENTCOM, AOR, do they continue to pose a significant threat to our partners and to our own forces in the region, and what more can be done to deter Iran from those malign activities?
So we see Iran as the largest malign actor in the region. Less than 60 hours ago, we had rockets attacked from Iranian aligned militia group against one of our bases in Syria.
What more can be done to deter them?
So one of the things that we are doing is increasing our defensive posture in these areas, and I want to thank the services for providing a capability. So particularly the Army has given us some tremendous capability in terms of counter UAS and counter rocket mortar at our bases forward.
With Syria and Iraq, what do you assess to be the situation in Syria right now, and have you seen any change in Russia's presence in Syria, or has that remained pretty steady since their invasion of Ukraine?
So, Senator, Syria is very important to Russia. They have taken very little out of Russia since their invasion. They've taken a small number of forces, some munitions, but generally it has stayed about the same. What we are seeing, though, is an increase recently in the unprofessional and unsafe behavior of the Russian Air Force in the region.
Can you give us an example of that here?
I can. So they fly over our bases with ground attack aircraft with weapons on them in an attempt to try and be provocative. But really, it's unsafe, unprofessional. Not what we expect of a professional Air Force. They want to try and renegotiate the deconfliction protocols that they violate every day.
This is not new Russian behavior, is it, sir? And especially with regard to the drone incident that we recently have seen.
It's not new, but we have seen a significant spike since about 1 March in Syria.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.